I just want to read it for the first time over and over and over again. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizard of the Reason. As always, guys, I'm Andrew. Today I got another book review. But before we get to that book review, make sure you are liking and subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that said, guys, today is a book review that is a little outside my norm. That's gonna be Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Guys, this is the third Adrian Tchaikovsky book that I have read, and I am now pretty convinced that the man can't write a bad book. And what was really interesting about this one is it's a standalone. I don't read a lot of standalones. I don't tend to vibe really well with standalones. I always feel like there's more that can be explored, or something feels a little bit rushed, or like there's some plot threads in there that didn't need to be there, or like, I've always got some sort of issue with a standalone. That's not the case here. This was a solid, like, I have to say it's a 5-star read for me. I read this on the recommendation of Alan from the Library of Alexandria. He read this a few months ago and absolutely loved it. Then I saw Klaus read it. Klaus absolutely loved it. And then I saw my good friend Johanna had purchased the book. And I was like, hey, do you want a buddy read that? And she was like, absolutely. And so, like, we planned this buddy read months ago. And oh my god, was the buddy read amazing. Like, we used the Voxer app, and so we would just pass messages back and forth every other day or so, just talking about what we had read and the themes and what was important about it. And we just both really enjoyed this this book. I'm going to go ahead and have Johanna's review in the description down below. Please make sure to check that out. She is fantastic, and I look forward to doing another buddy read with her because it was so much fun. But guys, about the book, this is like, so I've heard it referred to as like Downton Abbey, but to me, I've never watched Downton Abbey. And so if it's going to be Downton Abbey, it's going to be Downton Abbey meets Band of Brothers for me. This is just such a good book. Essentially, it follows, it's a single POV story that follows Emily Marshwick. And Emily is basically the daughter of a disgraced warlock to the king who had killed himself prior to the start of the book. And her genteel family has kind of fallen on hard times. Like, she's still upper crust, but, like, that's not saying much at this point in time in the country's history. Because, basically, there was Denland and Lascan are the two countries in question here. And both were monarchies. Well, the Republicans in Denland rose up as revolutionaries and basically committed regicide and killed the king, his family, and everything. And the way that magic works in this world is that if the king dies, all magic is gone from that country. Like, the magic that the warlocks use is a gift from the blood of the king. And so if he dies, it goes away. It goes bye-bye. You know, you are now a regular person again. Well, basically, Lascan sees this, and they're like, oh god, they're going to come for us too. They're not going to tolerate having a monarchy right next door. And so then they go to war. And basically, Lascan is just implementing draft after draft after draft after draft. Like, first it's all of the healthy men. Then it's all of the younger men. Then it's all of the older men, and then it comes time for the women. And so this follows the story of Emily basically having to go to war after she gets drafted. Now, it's funny because the book has 3 distinct parts to me. We've got the start of the book, where it is following Emily and her 3 sisters, her 2 sisters, sorry, she is one of 3 sisters. Her 2 sisters, which are basically Alice, who is kind of this flighty, hoity-toity, very, very genteel, very, I want a man, I want to marry well, you're a spinster, you're old, you're too old to marry, like very, like, I didn't like, Alice was fun to read, but at the same time, I'm like, you're annoying. And then I believe the other sister is Mary. Mary is married to a tradesman, and this is kind of how the family has come down a little bit, is, you know, a genteel woman had to marry a tradesman to kind of keep the family going after the death of their father. And she has a young son, Francis, I believe his name is, or Francois, I don't know. I never actually heard it pronounced. So they're just kind of living in their family home, Germain, day-to-day life, dealing with, the ramifications of these women having to step into the men's roles and like take up trades, run the shops, maintain the homesteads and everything like that. It's fascinating. And then there comes a divide where Emily gets called up. Well, specifically, what's really interesting about this book, this is what I really love, is basically the call is put out to like every household must give up a woman of a certain age. And all the Gentiles give up a servant. But Emily doesn't. Emily goes herself. And so then she gets to experience war, and she really meets some really interesting characters. Giles Scavian, who is a warlock of the king and a possible romantic interest. We get meet Malin. Malin is a scholar of the swamps, where basically there are two different war fronts going on. And there's one, I forget what the other one is called, but then there's I'm forgetting the name of these war fronts, but basically there's the calm war front, and then there's the swampy, like, dangerous war front, where it's like misty, and it's like, just guerrilla warfare. And Emily gets sent there, and so she meets Malin, who is kind of a scout for the swamp. He is a survivor and everything like that. It's really, really great. And then we get to meet Brocky. Brocky is like the quartermaster. I should say it's like Downton Abbey meets Band of Brothers meets MASH to me. Because inside of that camp, it feels very MASH-like, except that there's not a lot of humor. So if you remove the MASH humor and instead deal with the downtimes of that TV show, where like they're feeling the pressure of war, it feels very much like that. And Brocky very much brings that vibe. He's very much a coward. He's very much in it for himself. But at the same time, like, he believes in friendship, and he, in the end, like, rises up and becomes this great, fascinating character. I love Brocky. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but Brocky is one of my favorites. And it's just fascinating of the themes and everything that is explored within this masterpiece, because, again, these are women for the first time being called up to go to war and being made into soldiers. And so it's like, you're dealing with women coming into this role, and then the men having to deal with it. And like, this is a very, very different time period. This is very much Victorian. It's a man's world. And like, the men are just like, nah, if I want you, like, I get to take you. That's the way this works. And the women are like, And so you really get to see the female dynamics within the military. It's so good. It's really satisfying. It's really gritty. And it feels, honestly, a lot like historical fiction. And one of the great things about that is if you remove 3 characters from this book, 3-ish characters, this becomes, other than a fictional setting, it would just become historical fiction. Like, you could literally just change the country names, maybe rename the battlefronts, and remove 3 characters, and this becomes historical fiction, which is fantastic. I have not read a lot of historical fiction, and I feel like if an historical fiction reader wants to get into fantasy, or a fantasy reader wants to get into historical fiction, this is the perfect gateway. It's so good. The characters make sense, the decisions make sense. Emily is just a strong female protagonist who has her priorities, maybe not all the time straight, but at the same time, she leads with her heart a lot of the time. And it does have a little bit of a love triangle. I've mentioned Giles Scavian as a potential love interest, and then there's Mr. Northway back at home, who was basically the man who deposed her father, kind of ruined the prospects, and led to her father taking his own life. And she starts, basically, they have a very combative relationship, but it's more of like almost an enemies to lovers thing, that of a will they, won't they. And it's so great. This book actually has a really interesting structure as well. Basically, I've seen before where, like, a Blood Song, for instance, where we start at the end, and then we kind of work our way, we then restart the book at, like, chapter 1 or chapter 2, and work our way to the end to become present in the epilogue or the last chapter. This, instead, starts about a third of the way in, and then from there, we go back to the beginning, catch up again, and then move forward. And it's really well done, because a lot of the books start with essentially letters that Emily is penning back home. And so we start to get like a lot of the first chapter literally starts with, I killed my first man today. And then we know we've caught up again when you read the letter. Or when you read the letter at the beginning, I've killed my first man today. And so, like, literally, it's so good. I feel like I keep saying literally. But, guys, this book is fantastic. Structurally, great. Great characters, great prose. Very, very readable. It's a quick read. It's about 600-ish pages. 650 pages. But it read really quickly. I read this in about 8 days. And that was just at a leisurely pace. And overall, I cannot recommend you pick up this book. Not only look at the cover. A, gorgeous cover. B, floppy paperback. C, smells good. So there's 3 pluses before we even open the book. And once you open the book, you've just got great characters, great prose, great setting, great pacing. Like everything in this book comes together really well to deliver a well-polished and satisfying story. Guys, I cannot recommend this one enough. If you've been thinking about picking up Guns of the Dawn, do yourself a favor and go ahead and purchase it. Pick it up on ebook, pick it up on audio, pick it up on physical. Whatever you need to do to read this book, I highly recommend it. That said, that is enough of me gushing about this wonderful book. But guys, let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking up Guns of the Dawn, if you have picked up Guns of the Dawn, and if you loved it. I would love to hear all of your thoughts. And as always, make sure to check the description down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord. We would love to have you. We are an ever-growing community, and we've got some really great conversation going on in that Discord. And if you want to support the channel on a more regular basis, you can go ahead and check the description for the link to the Patreon as well. Your support is always appreciated. And as always, guys, that's the end of the book review. So, till next time, peace out. Stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.